Blog Talk Radio.
This is Tyson B here, kicking it in the WSC Lounge with Jason and Brian here, and all the latest on wrestling and food, getting all your entertainment news. Hello, this is Bill Bobby, live with the Wolf Island Midnight Express. You listen to me on Brian and Jason's WSC Lounge. Yes, sir. Hey guys, I'm Robert Palmer Watkins. I play Dylan Quartermain on General Hospital, and you're listening to the WSC Lounge.
Hey y'all, we're Donnie Dixie and you're listening to the WSC Lounge.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another great edition of the WSC Lounge. I am your host, Brian. Should be joined momentarily by my co-host, Jason. I don't see him on the line yet. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please welcome former NWA, WWF, as it's known now as WWE, WCW, Continental Wrestling Federation wrestler. He's done it all. Please welcome the one and only White Lightning, Tim Horner, to today's show.
Hey Brian, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good. Great to be alive.
Yeah. Hey, amen to that. Without God, we wouldn't be here,
Exactly right.
I wanna first and foremost say, Tim, that it is a honor in many ways to have you on this show because your name, I have mentioned your name to many guests that that we've had on from the wrestling business, and I've asked them. I said, whatever happened to Tim Horner? And because I was such a big fan of yours, and there was several years there that I didn't see you, anywhere on the, wrestling scene, and I got to wondering, well, whatever happened to Tim Horner? And some of them would say they didn't know, and some of them, I think, said you lived in Florida now, and was retired. So how have you been doing? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been doing great, and I'm not in Florida. I'm in the great state of Tennessee, up in the eastern part of Tennessee, in Morristown. It's about 40 miles east of Knoxville. I was born and raised here, so this is where I'm at. And so I have not completely gotten away from wrestling. I still do some trade shows and do some guest appearances, and wrestled. Ronnie Garvin and myself wrestled actually last year in Georgia at a Legends event there, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I stay in touch with a few guys, not a lot of them, but a few of them. So.
Now that's a name I haven't heard in a long time either. Ronnie Garvin. How's he doing?
He's doing great. We talk probably once a month anyway. He lives in Virginia, stays up there during the summertime, and then he fifth wheel around and goes and stays Texas a month, and Florida a month, and then Alabama a month, and he just enjoying life as only Ronnie can. So.
Well, that's great. I know you do the Brad Armstrong Memorial Show a lot now, since Brad passed. Jerry Stubbs is actually a good friend of mine. He's actually related to my neighbor. They're cousins some way. But I've been knowing Jerry a long.
He had Jerry Stubbs.
Yeah, I've been knowing Jerry a long time when he was on the police department, and and then how is it for you now doing the Brad Armstrong memorials and everything, and I know you teamed with Brad Armstrong and the Lightning Express, I believe it was many years ago. How's that for you?
It's tough every year. It's tough even when they don't do those a lot. Brad and I were kind of like brothers. We lived together. We trained together when we were on the road, and we were together for 5 years. We first met in Atlanta back in early '80s, and we just hit it off. And I've spent the night at their house many times, and he stayed at mine. And the whole Armstrong family is a great family. And they always took care of their own, and they took me in as one of their own, and I never forgot that. And it's really tough. Brad and I wrestled in May of 2012 here in my hometown, Morristown. We did a fundraiser for the football team. Had the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and myself and Brad, and it was actually the last time that I got to tag with Brad and to see him. That was in May, and he passed November 1st of that year. So it's been tough. It's always tough, but the good Lord don't put any more on us than we can stand. So I just thankful for the time that I did get to spend with him. So.
Wow, yeah. Well, I mean, all we can do is, thank God for His blessings and everything, and
absolutely,
just be thankful for the memories and everything. One other question that I had for you that I've been wanting to know for years, and I'm going to bring on my co-host Jason. I used to watch a independent wrestling organization ran by, I believe it was Bert Prentice. It came on CSS back when they had the sports channel here in Georgia. And you were on there. You were the TV champion for the organization. And you used to feud with this other guy. I forgot what his name was, but y'all were getting ready to have a tournament. And it was back when Ray Traylor was living. And they said that Ray Traylor was going to be coming in the following week, to be a part of the tournament. Well, shortly after that announcement, Ray Traylor unfortunately passed away, and then I never saw the company on TV again, and I didn't never know what happened with the tournament. So, can you kind of iterate on that? I mean, what happened?
I'm not sure I know what happened. It was just my memory doesn't fail me. I think it was just an upstart promotion at that point, and for whatever reason, the promoter and the financial aspects of that didn't G and ha together. So I don't think it really got off the ground as they wanted it to. Ever since cable came on the scene back in the mid '80s, and when WTBS, and I know you remember that, Freddie Miller, Gordon Solie,
yes,
and all. When wrestling was wrestling, but that everybody said this is going to be a good thing, and I said, well, we'll just have to see, and what that allowed, it was a good thing. I mean, in some ways, but in a lot of ways, there was a lot of a negative toward that, because it allowed us at that time to go everywhere, but it allowed the promoters and the owners to buy up all the old territories, and thus it was hard for anybody to get into business and go get any experience anywhere, because there was nowhere to go. And now there is only one place to go. And we all know WWE is the place to be if you're going to be in wrestling. And so, but there's really no until they've started their own NXT, which is what we were doing here with Smoky Mountain Wrestling back in the early '90s. We wanted to be a feeder for the WWE, and if you go back and look, Kane was here. just trying to think who all came through here that are up there. Chris Candido, Tom Pritchard was here.
Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho was here. Absolutely, yeah. All those guys came through here when they just were just getting their feet wet in the wrestling business, you know. But that was a good idea at the time, but they actually didn't see it. And then they saw it, and then they started their own with, or actually Danny Davis up in Louisville, OVW, which is where Batista, Cena, Orton, all those guys came through there. And so I guess now they see that Triple H had a vision that he wanted to have his own AAA club, for lack of better words, you know, where they could just make and produce their own talent. So, and that's actually what's doing now. But it's harder for anybody. I have guys call me. Somebody calls every week wanting me to train them and do this and do that. And you know, I can do that, but there's nowhere to really send them anymore to get experience.
Wow.
Because you know as well as I do, every town has a promotion now. You know, the independents, and a lot of those independent guys weren't good enough to work for anybody else, so they had their own independent show. You know, and then it's like, you know, breeding bad and bad, you get bad. You know, if you mix green paint with green paint, you get green paint. And if you got a guy that thinks he knows everything and doesn't know anything, he's only teaching somebody else bad habits. And I'm not throwing off on anybody. Anybody wants to do they can do what they want to do. But just from my perspective, it's just tough on the independent scene now.
Yeah, I think a lot of them get into business and they think that, you know, they think because they're young and you know they know it all, and they look at guys like you and Ric Flair and Bob Armstrong and other people, and you know they look at them and they say, well, you know, they don't know nothing. But you know that's wrong, because you know all of y'all, you know, y'all know what it was like to get in there and do some real wrestling. I mean, and you know, put on a show. I mean, if you go back and you look at the wrestling product back in the 80s, when you know, when y'all used to get out there and fight and get in there and wrestle and stuff, compared to now, you see a totally new ball game. And I mean, you see it looking more realistic back then than you do now.
Well, it was more so back then. There was it was almost a mafia mentality. You know, the older guys didn't want younger guys in it. I remember breaking in the late 70s, you know, and I took a beating. I mean, you know, guys, they would actually try to run you off just to see how tough you were. And the backside of that was it made me tougher. But yeah, it's nothing like back then. You know, I see guys up there, and I worked with the WWE in 2006 for about 8 months behind the scenes. I helped produce Raw and SmackDown and ECW at that time, and so it was just a whole different for me too, because I saw where the business was going. You know, and to see guys, you know, sit back and go over their matches for 3 or 4 hours for a 8 or 9 minute match, and I'm going, Jesus, that's, you know. I said we didn't have that opportunity when I got in the business, because number one, you got fined by the promoter if you were seen with the other guy, the guy you were working with, or you know, and many times I get in the ring and meet the guy for the first time. Knew who he was, but never had a chance to meet him and talk to him. So we didn't have it. You know, we just played off the cuff and off the emotions of the people. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you know, the business is real, you know. I mean, it's real, but it's a controlled environment. We all know that now. But back then, I mean, you didn't say that, you know. I remember Bill Watts finding Bob Orton Jr. $500 for going into a bar and getting beat up because he was a champion. And, you know, if you go in the bar, you as a champion and some fan beats you up, you know. So
yeah, I guess that made the promotion look bad, you know, him being a champion, though.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, without any further ado, we're gonna go ahead and go to a quick commercial. That's 9 seconds. It's actually somebody talking that I know that you know very well, Tim. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna bring on my co-host, Jason.
Great.
This is Exotic Adrian Street, and you're listening to your WSE Lounge.
Okay, we're back. That was Exotic Adrian Street. You remember him?
Yeah, very well. Wrestling anytime.
Okay, without any further ado, I want to bring on my co-host right now, Jason.
Hey, Jason, how you doing, buddy? Maybe he's home, maybe he's not.
Hey, you there, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Tim, how are you today, sir?
I'm good. You?
Good, good. Sir, it's an honor to meet you. I grew up watching you, sir.
You sound like Arn Anderson on. I don't know if that's good or bad, but
I think that's a good thing. But
yeah.
I've got a lot of questions to cover with you, Tim. I was a fan of Smoky Mountain Wrestling growing up, and I know you were the co-owner there with Jim Cornette. You were the co-owner there with Jim Cornette at the Step Up, and did not know that. I wanted to point that out. And I heard a little bit of it, but when it got started, talk about some of the guys that went through there. Talk about, what you guys were trying to do there, besides, beating the WWE and World Championship.
Well, when we started, it was actually myself and Jim Cornette and Sandy Scott. I don't know if you remember Sandy Scott. He was one of the Flying Scots, Canada, and met Sandy in Charlotte early in my career in about the 80s. And this was a time, we thought it was good timing with the Smoky Mountain Wrestling to do something, and we just said a while ago, wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. And we went back to doing the old school type wrestling, and it worked. We were in 12, 13 major markets here in 4 or 5 states. We had good talent. We had a financial backer from California, Rick Rubin, who owns the Red Hot Chili Peppers and managed Johnny Cash, and he was a big wrestling fan, and so he was backing the thing financially. But all good things come to an end, and that's basically what happened there. I left probably a year before it actually dissolved itself. Just had some disagreements with Cornette. It's been aired out, and I don't talk about it much because it's just part of my past. But it was just we didn't agree on a lot of things and business aspects of the business. So I just bowed out gracefully. And but it was good, and we developed a lot of talent for the WWE at that time. So proud of that, and the guys that were all there. I could go back and name Jimmy Golden, the Dirty White Boy, and Dutch Mantel, and Candido, and Kane was there, and Rock and Roll Express, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Gosh, I sit back and think how many guys did come through there. That was
Heavenly Body.
Tops. Pardon?
The Heavenly Body.
Exactly, yeah. Tom Pritchett and Jimmy Del Rey, and then who was the other partner? Stan Lane, yeah. So one of the biggest shows we did in Pikeville, Kentucky, was the Rock and Roll Express and Arn Anderson against the Heavenly Bodies and Bobby Eaton. You know, and that was at that time that was a main event anywhere in the country, and we had it in Pikeville, Kentucky, sold out. I mean, it was crazy. But yeah, those were good times. You know, when you could go in and ad lib. Everything is so scripted now. You know, it's hard to sit back and, because we did our own interviews. You know, we didn't have anybody write them for us or like they do now. But you know, it was all as your emotions. You know, you can tell when somebody's reading something off, or they're actually speaking from their heart or from within them. And to me, it just took a lot out of wrestling, because there's always been good and evil in wrestling, and that's what people what got people to watch wrestling and get them to come out, because they hated somebody, and the only way they could get back at them is through somebody else who was going to whip them for them, you know, so to speak. So I talked to many of my elders. My grandfathers both had heart attacks watching wrestling on TV, but this was before I ever got in it. But it was just the emotions that people had and still have. I mean, there's still places you can go that people will fight you over whether it's real or not, you know. So, and that does me good to see that sometimes. So.
Yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth with the promos and the interviews being scripted now. It doesn't have the heart and the fire into it like you usually see. I'm glad you covered that, because I've said that for the past 5-6 years now, that the scripts, the Hollywood scripts are killing professional wrestling, and the wrestling guy should be put in charge of what goes on.
Absolutely. I've said that. I said it when I was up there, and I'll say it probably till I die. You know, if you go back and look at some Four Horsemen interviews, Arn Anderson interviews, I mean, those were all his interviews. They weren't some writer from L.A. or anything. They were his interviews, and he put himself in that position, you know, to do those interviews. And you know, a Flair interview or a Dusty Rhodes interview. I mean, they were all, you know, you can't script things out that those guys said and did. And it, to me, and that's old school, you know, that's just the way it is, but it was so good.
It was. I mean, Dusty Rhodes would give you chill bumps. I literally got chill bumps listening to Dusty, and still do today when I'll call up a Dusty interview on YouTube or something, you know what I mean? It was just so classic and so great back then. You know, I guess we just, as wrestling fans, people who work in the business, just got to take it for what it is now. But I do miss good old days, as we spoke about earlier, WTBS. We didn't mention the Wrestling Machine, the 8 hours of wrestling that Smoky Mountain was actually on. And I recall one week in, I think it was January '95. I was a young man. And the week before, you know, Wrestling Machine with Lonnie Blackstone and Joe Pedicino was on. And I turned it, I think, WATL TV at the time. And I turned it on, and it had been canceled now, man. Because I've watched that all my life, you know?
Right.
The 8 hours of wrestling.
Oh yeah, that, you know, it's if anybody that's, you know, 21 or younger has no idea what we're talking about unless they go on back, like you said, on YouTube and watch some of this old stuff that was, you know, I have young kids that are getting in the business now, you know, and you know, all they know is what they've seen on TV with WWE for the last, you know, 10 or 12, 15 years. And so when you get the opportunity to work with one of those young guys on an independent show or something, and you try to do some stuff, they don't have a clue what they're doing. You know, it's out there. Nobody tells that story anymore. You know, it's just like a tennis match. You're just watching the ball go back and forth. They're jumping off the ropes, doing stuff, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I'll tell you the story real quick. When we brought the stormtroopers in, or thrill seekers, I guess, and that was Y2J and
Lance Storm.
Lance Storm. They came in, and Chris was very athletic. I mean, he cut back flips. He doesn't do as much now as he used to, but he'd cut back flips off the top rope and do all kinds of stuff. And I told him, I said, you know, that stuff's good, but you know, incorporate it into your match somewhere where, you know, you get in trouble and you use that back flip to get out of a hold or something instead of just going out there and doing it because you can do it. I mean, it's just like watching a tennis ball go back and forth across. And they go so fast that they don't get the fans enough time to absorb what they're doing. I always told the guys, too, I said, hey, you know, you punch a guy 10 times real quick. I said, you know, which one hurt him? You know? So, you know, you punch him 10 times, and they said, God dang, it took him 10 punches to get him down, you know? And I said, which one does the guy sell? Which one does it, you know, you can only sell the last one, so the first 9 didn't mean a whole lot. So why not hit him with one good punch, and then you got a hell of a punch like Garvin, you know? The one punch, you know, he beat people with one punch. So, but getting back to that, we were talking after they had their match, and I was just giving them some pointers. They were young and asking, and I didn't mind telling and offering it. But Terry Funk and Bob Armstrong were in the ring, and the people was going crazy, standing up in their seats and trying to get over the rail and hanging over Kellen. And Chris said, "Who's out there?" And I said, "Come here, I want you to say something." So he stuck his head out the curtain, and Funk and Bob Armstrong were working a top wrist lock, going back and forth, and Terry was trying to get Bob's hair, and Bob was, you know, and people were out of their minds. And I said, look at this. None of them, they didn't cut back flips off the top rope and doing all this crazy stuff, you know. I said, they're working, they're wrestling, and they're entertaining, you know. And so I just learned early on that it's not how much you do, it's what you do. So, you know, that was just something, Ben, that you know, he picked up on pretty quick, you know. So that was just something I wanted to throw out there.
That was a great story. Yeah, I've watched guys in the locker room sit there and talk about their match, like move for move. And, you know, a lot of people will say now it's a plot fest. What is it for you, calling it in the ring or calling it backstage?
Me?
Yeah, you, Jeff.
Oh, in the ring. I mean, and I told him when I was up there back in 2006, you know, I said, I can't believe y'all sat here and talk over this match that's taking you 3 hours to do a 6-7 minute match. And they said, they was worried about I was going to forget something. And they said, well, didn't you ever worry about forgetting? And I said, no, because I didn't know what I was going to do till I got out there. So I didn't have to worry about forgetting. You know, if we were doing something and fans wasn't buying it, we did something else. But see, up there, if they go off of, they stray to the right off of the script up there, then they're totally lost. And to me, that just takes all the personal effect out of their match. You know, because you can tell when they mess up now. I mean, they try to hide it through the cameras, and it's like I told them. I said, we get out there, and I said, if you mess up, just keep going. I said, they didn't know what we were going to do to begin with. So unless you have that deer in the headlights look on your face, you know, nobody knew. And it was good to mess up sometimes, because if you did it too perfect, then they thought, well, yeah, y'all planned that out, you know.
We're going to try to go over. We're going to try to go over about 14 minutes, Tim. We're going to try. So if
Okay.
the feed happens to cut you off, you know, we didn't do it, Blog Talk did it, but we're going to try to go over. Okay, you can continue, Jason. Just want to let Tim know that.
That's great.
SmackDown, not this past week, but the week before, great match, I will say, AJ Styles and Chris Jericho. But you were just talking about it. It happened in that match. The finish was supposed to be the springboard, and Jericho was going to pop him off the rope. And the thing was that the referee thought fast, and Jericho's foot was under the rope, so they had to go to an alternate finish. And if you remember, the coach did it. And that is quick thinking. And, I mean, you don't see that often, but those two have had a tremendous feud so far. And just like you were talking about, that's the way you do it. Another thing I want to ask you is, you know, the facial expressions, the grabbing for that one person in the crowd. You don't see that much anymore.
No. I learned early on, and the old guys would tell you, a good facial expression is worth 1,000 holes. You know, because if I'm twisting a guy's arm, the fans can't feel it. They can only see it. And the only way they know I'm hurting him is if he has an expression on his face, or he's showing physically and facially that it's hurting. And then you can control how much or how, when, or why. But you're right. You know, guys just have plain faces. It's refreshing to see a guy do that now. But I don't know if they're just not teaching him or they don't know to. And then most of the time they forget to because they're so worried about whether they're going to get their spots in or not, you know, and do everything right. So, but to me, it was just natural to do that. So,
working with we'll go back to the UWF and the Lions Express. I know you worked a young Sting and Rick Steiner for the tag titles. And
right.
A lot of people say that Sting was real free. How was Sting to work with? And I mean, to me, watching that match, it don't look that great, but I just want your aspect on that.
We knew who Sting was and we knew who Steiner was. Brad and I both signed contracts to move out to Dallas to the UWF when they took it over, and we met them first night we worked. And if you go back and look at that match on YouTube, it was like 28 minutes, and we literally got the finish. That's all they told us, and the rest of it was us. And at that point in Sting's career and Rick, they said, you know, you guys are the veterans at this juncture, so you know we'll just follow you. And of course, we had Tommy Gilbert as a referee in there, and Eddie was out on the ringside with Steiner and Sting. But that match, I couldn't ask for a better match for a title match that we took the titles off of them for a title match, and to have not worked with each other ever, and to go out there and do 29 minutes, it was phenomenal. And Sting was good. You know, he was still learning at that point. One Sting's greatest times came when he got to work with the Horsemen, and he learned a lot about the business working with the Horsemen. But Steiner was snug. He was stiff. Everything he did was real. You know, he didn't mind hitting you with that Steiner line. But I like that. You know, I you know, if you're gonna hit me, hit me. You know, it's not ballet. So
speaking of that, if fans want to see that match, you can see that on the latest Sting video with the documentary. It is on that video. And when we go back to the stiff, we talked about earlier, Rugged Ronnie Garvin, I've heard that he is very stiff in the ring. Is this true?
That he's what?
That he's very stiff in the ring.
No. I mean, he can be. You know, as we all can. He was just a snug. He worked snug. A lot of guys work snug. Greg Valentine worked snug. You know, a lot of guys work snug, and then a lot of guys didn't like it. You know, but yeah, Ronnie could handle himself, and he was respected by just about everybody in the business. You know, you didn't want to cross him or anything. You know, so I remember one time at TV, this young kid, I couldn't even tell you who it was, but he came in and he went over to Ronnie and he said, "Hey, me and you are on TV today," and he said, "I'm just going to do some stuff to you. You know, I got my family here and everything." Ronnie said, "Well, all right." You know, well, that lasted about 30 seconds. You know, because Ronnie just went out and ate his lunch and put him in a sugar hole and made a fool out of it. You know, because you just didn't do that. You know, you respected the guys, you know, that worked on top, and you know, and Ronnie was, you know, like TV champion and whatever, you know, and you just, it was just a bad move on the guy's part. But, you know, because we all, Hawk and Animal, we were all sitting in the back watching the show, and everybody was going, "Come on, get a seat. This is going to be good. Ronnie's going to eat this guy," you know, because everybody saw it brewing. So,
Respect
but
for
that
the
was just
veteran.
part. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I worked for the guy one time, and I won't tell you who it is, but he was the TV champion at the time, and we worked the match, and we were going at that. They didn't want to. They didn't want to take the strap off of him, but they didn't want me to win either. So we went to like a 20-minute time limit, and so first of it was all him, you know. And I said, you know, "Look here, I got to get a few things in here, you know." So, and it was like pulling teeth. And then I just kind of just took him down and hooked him, and I said, "Look here, you know, you can work with me. I'm gonna just win. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna win, you know. Heck, you know." And then after that, then it became easy, you know. But guys made it hard sometimes. It's an easy business. It's a hard business on your body, but you know, back then it was fun, you know. You know, it was a job. We made a living doing it, but it was a fun living.
I have a really quick question for you, Tim. What was it like for you going to go up against a star like the Great Muta and feeling his chops that he used to, as well as Ric Flair when he used to the chops?
He was pretty snug. I wrestled Muta over in Japan, in Tokyo. I flew over. It was kind of a last minute thing. Dusty Rhodes came to me, and you know, they wanted somebody from WCW to come over and challenge Muta in Tokyo, and they didn't advertise who it was, you know. And I guess Japan kind of the office over there kind of let the people think that Sting was coming, and so, you know, when I walked out, it was kind of you know, kind of a letdown thing. It was me, but anyway, I mean, we had a tremendous match. I mean, it was really, 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 really good, and he was a great worker and great wrestler, and he appreciated the guys over here a lot, and he worked more our style than their style over there. So I mean, it was a classic match. But yeah, he didn't mind being stiff with them. And over there, I mean, they were stiff. And the guys told me the first time I went over there, they said, "No, they're going to try you." And I said, "What do you mean try me?" I said, "They'll try you. They'll stiff with you. And if you don't fight them back, you know, they'll just beat you up." And that's the way it was when I went over there the first time. But I fired back on them. And then the next night, forget the guy I was working with, he come over and he said, "Maybe tonight we work American style." I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So.
Wow. I wanted to know, have you heard any updates on how Blackjack Mulligan's doing? Because I know that he was in the hospital about 2 weeks ago.
Well, I saw on Facebook somebody said he passed away, and then somebody else come back and said, no, he didn't. So it's back and forth, and I really don't know. I tried to find out. I spoke with, I knew he was really sick. I spoke with Bray back in Knoxville. They were here not long ago, and Bray said he wasn't doing well. And so, but anyway, Mulligan gave me Blackjack gave me my first full-time job as a wrestler. And super guy. Super guy. When they came here in 1981 in Knoxville, him and Ric Flair started a organization here in Knoxville. It was a branch off of the Carolinas. And, he gave me my first full-time job. Asked me he came up to me and he said, you like doing this? And I said, yes, sir. It's all I've ever wanted to do. And he said, you ever thought about doing it full-time? And I said, that's all I've ever wanted to do. And he said, you start Monday. And I was working a little job here and going to college. And I thought, all right, I'm gone. Because I'd sat there and told those guys for a year that I was going to do it. Yeah, you are. Yeah, we know. And then finally it happened. And I said, golly, I can't believe it. I said, yeah, I'm gone. See you.
Wow. I see we've got about 3 minutes left in the show. I wanted to ask you, Tim, if you would do a promo for us. Just say this is the White Lightning, Tim Horner, and you're listening to the WSE Lounge.
The
WSE Lounge.
WSE Lounge?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to. When you want it now?
Yeah.
Ready?
Go ahead. Yes. Yes, sir.
Hey, White Light and Tim Horner here as you're listening to the WSE Lounge. Stay tuned.
Okay. Thank you. I got it. Do you have any upcoming events you want to promote to the fans or anything?
I really don't myself. I had I'm not sure if I'm still doing it. In March, they've got a show in New Jersey that they called me and asked me if I was interested in, but I hadn't really heard back from them. And then there's a couple of independent shows coming up and some stuff. But I've gotten into music a little bit here. Not that I'm a great singer, but I'm a good promoter. That's what I say.
Okay.
I say. But there's a group here. There's a group here called American Pride. I'll tell you real quick. They're called American Pride. You can go to AmericanPrideCountry.com. They do a tribute to the Statler brothers, and they're guys that I'm still with, and they're really good. I've promoted them on several shows. So.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you so much for being on, Tim, and we hope you'll come back again sometime. And thank you so much for being on.
I'd be happy to. All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
This is Mike Mooneyham. I want to tell all you fans out there, don't miss the WSE Lounge. You'll be glad you caught this great show.